Hello, friends. This is another episode of Empire of Lies, where we discuss manipulation and disinformation in the Russian media. Russia Unbridled, Solovyov's apocalyptic live broadcast and a new philosophy of war. On Russian television, there are no longer any boundaries between the state and rage. In the latest episode of Evening with Vladimir Solovyov, the host frequently quoted former President Dmitry Medvedev. 1. From politics to rage. So, how's Paris doing? Let's slam it. Berlin, Medvedev begins, shifting from mockery to threat. He accuses the West of Ukrainians attacking nuclear power plants, assures that Europe will applaud the radioactive contamination of half of Russia, and concludes, "We can destroy all of Ukraine. There will be no life in Kharkiv, Poltava, Odessa, or Kyiv." Solovyov chimes in, "Yes, this is war. That's it. The jokes are over." The studio doesn't object, doesn't comment. The apocalyptic speech sounds like a self-evident declaration of state will. This isn't a burst of hysteria. This is a new language of power, in which the concepts of diplomacy, law, and even reality disappear. Here, war is not a means, but a meaning. And the worse things are for Russia at the front, the louder the talk about the gates of hell, hot frying pans for European sinners, and the right to wipe cities off the face of the earth resounds. 2. Europe as the enemy of humanity. What was once considered marginal rhetoric is now uttered from the central podium of television. In this worldview, Europe is not a political opponent, but a civilizational antagonist. A country without faith and without morals, where perverts rule. Medvedev says it literally. There can't be a country where there is no faith in God. There's none in Europe. They have strange minorities in power. That's why they are the enemy. This is how a new Kremlin ideology is born. Not the Russian world as a model, but Russian wrath as a mission. Russia no longer offers an alternative. It offers apocalypse as a moral imperative. This isn't a dispute over borders, but an attempt to destroy the very idea of the West, rational, secular, and legal. 3. Terror as strategy. Medvedev's quote contains a moment of cold calculation. Why don't we consider their warehouses and factories legitimate targets? Anywhere where weapons are stored, where Ukrainian soldiers are training, should burn and explode. Where NATO troops are located, they should be decommissioned. These words aren't just an emotional threat. They are a direct justification for attacks on NATO member countries, from Poland to Germany. The phrase decommissioned is heard on a state channel, in the presence of a former head of state, without a hint of condemnation. This is no longer propaganda, but rather the preparation of public consciousness for the idea that war with the West is permissible. Just as the word denazification once made aggression against Ukraine possible, now the word decommissioning makes everything else possible. And don't think they won't hand over some long-range missiles in one form or another. Of course they will. They'll say Tomahawks, but instead of Tomahawks, they'll actually hand over not Ukrainian missiles, but British Flamingos, manufactured through a formal intermediary in the Emirates. Now, we understand that Ukrainian weapons aren't Ukrainian weapons. Most of the production facilities are located in Western European countries or Eastern European countries. And the question is different. Why don't we consider these our legitimate goals? What will happen then? What else can they give us? What is in their arsenal that makes us so darn sure we'll give them now? What? So what? They'll give us everything they can. 4. Sodom and Gomorrah, the religion of nuclear retaliation. Biblical metaphors occupy a special place in the speech. If civilians do not leave, I will remind you of the fate of Sodom and Gomorrah. This phrase is more important than it seems. It transforms war into a religious register, where the destruction of cities is not a crime, but a sacred act of purification. This creates the image of Russia as a punishing force that is permitted to do anything because it acts according to the will of God. 5. Why this directly concerns Europe. It is important for European viewers to understand that such words are not an excess. This is the official atmosphere of Russian politics in 2025. When Medvedev, Solovyov, or Skabiva talk about nuclear strikes or the destruction of cities, they're not just scaring people, they're normalizing violence as a political tool. And they do this in front of millions, every evening, under the logo of the Russia 1 television channel. This rhetoric is dangerous not only because it incites hatred, it blurs the very concept of limits. After such broadcasts, strikes on civilian infrastructure, the murder of civilians, and attacks on power plants are perceived not as crimes, but as retaliation. You've been on the program Empire of Lies. See you soon.